There we go. It always has to say that before we. Yeah, this
Ooh.
is real deal shit, man.
Oh, wow.
It'll
Okay.
let you know when it's starting. But the thing is, when I put this up to YouTube, nobody knows that it says it. But for those of you listening, it says the meeting is in like the recording process or some shit like that. But
Yeah,
anyways,
there's like a really, really nice sketchy kind of like, post-apocalyptic robot voice that says, "This meeting is being recorded."
it was a good impression. And yeah, man, yeah, super soothing. Super soothing.
Yeah, it is kind of soothing. Love that dystopian future vibe. Nothing,
Really
nothing
puts you at
quite like
ease.
it. Yeah.
So, anyways, man, what got you interested in music?
Okay, so yeah, big broad one out the gate,
Yeah, yeah,
huh?
yeah. We'll go into specifics later, but blanket
Yeah.
terms.
Well, so my father is a musician. So we grew up in a musical household. My mother it grew up in London in the 60s, and she kind of grew up surrounded by musicians, and has always been a really big music fan. So music has just like been a very big part of my life since quite a young age. And yeah, again, my father's a musician, so I kind of grew up just even before I actually physically played an instrument. I kind of considered myself a musician because I think I just figured that was sort of part of the part of life, kind of, was just like playing music and like making sounds.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's good, man. So, I mean, you got into it real late then. You said like what, 7? It's kind of.
Yeah, well, okay, so I probably didn't start actually playing until like properly until like middle school. I got into music. I mean, like
That's even
there were
later,
always
dude. That's even later. That's like you're not supposed to be getting into it at that age, but
I know
whatever,
it's
man.
too late, too late, too I know I'd outgrown it.
Whenever you find it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. So from a pretty young age, I mean, I remember doing like piano lessons probably around like 7 or 8 or something like that, but I hated it. And then kind of picked up the guitar on my own, starting with the bass, or probably at like, 11 or 12.
I mean, that is in all earnest. Yeah, that is really young. That's the right time to get into it, though.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
young. Yeah. Where did the name Sad Girl come from?
So I remember I remember having like a list of names for the group, like a few different ones, and I wanted to be a very LA name. And also I was a big fan of like the name White Fence as a band name, which stems from, it's like one of LA's oldest gangs is White Fence. And I thought it was like a really cool artistic reinterpretation, was to like name a recording project like that. And there's a really classic tradition in soul and doo-wop music. There's a song called Sad Girl, which was then kind of adopted as like a street name for like female gang members. And so I thought it was really cool because it kind of ticked a few boxes. It was the name of a soul and doo-wop song, and I'm a huge oldies and doo-wop and soul music fan, so it felt like right in line with the lineage of that. It felt like it was very representative of kind of like street and urban culture in Los Angeles, and having grown up in Los Angeles, that was like a really important thing to reflect. And also it was a very powerful, represented like a strong and powerful kind of feminine energy, which I thought was like a really important and kind of different way to approach doing like punk music, which is kind of what the band started as initially. And especially coming from, I grew up in Venice, and so like the punk bands that were around were like, they had names like Suicidal Tendencies or No Mercy or Beowulf, and it was like hyper aggressive, like machismo, and like Suicidal, I don't know, if you're aware, but like Suicidal Tendencies then kind of like actually offshooted into like gang culture. They're like the Venice Suicidal White Boys. They're like a gang that were like pretty big in Venice, and
I did
that
not
all
know
stemmed.
that aspect, but that's
Yeah, so pretty
interesting.
crazy. I mean, you still see like tags around the West Side occasionally that say like, Suicidal White Boys, or Venice Suicidal and things like that, and like different offshoots of it. So I thought a lot of my friends growing up had older family members that came from that kind of culture of like the West Side kind of like street life. and came from punk bands that were, you know, a decade or 2 decades before when I kind of started making music. And so I kind of thought it was like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of kind of like, you know, flipping the bird to that idea of having to have like a hyper masculine version of this punk group, you know what I mean? That had to be in some way associated with violence or aggression and stuff like that. But honestly, primarily, I think it was like I said, I'm a big fan of soul music and oldies, and "SadGirl" is such an iconic song that has been covered by a load of different groups and also individual artists. And so that was the coolest sounding out of the list. That felt like it sort of checked the most boxes when I was coming up with ideas for the group name.
Yeah. So I mean, there's really no thought process into it at all.
Yeah, I honestly haven't ever really thought about it. It's just a couple
No.
syllables.
I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding, dude. It's a joke, dude. It's a prank, man. But anyways, how old were you when you wrote the majority of the songs for "SadGirl" thus far?
So I started the group I was probably 23 or 24. And so a lot of them were kind of between probably 23 and 26. Like a lot of the catalog is probably in that 3-year period or more. And then sort of started writing stuff a little bit less kind of like prolifically, I guess. After that, I started focusing more on songs and kind of trying to hone my craft as a songwriter, and also started growing away from sort of the angry angstiness of like the early days with the kind of, you know, more aggressive surf punk sound, and started finding myself writing a lot more ballads and kind of more kind of sentimental tracks. And yeah, like I said, like more so honing my songwriting, so spending a little bit more time on each song as opposed to just cranking out, you know, 1 minute and 30-second punk songs kind of, or 2-minute punk songs.
So do you feel like your inspiration has changed from the beginning of the band until now?
It's definitely evolved, but I think very much so my heart still lies in kind of oldies and doo-wop and soul music. And I still very much love like surf music and spaghetti western kind of soundtracks and stuff. And that those kind of three, along with like punk music, that was kind of where my heart laid. And now I think more so than incorporating the punk element sonically into the music, I think I just keep that punk ethos as part of the energy or the underlying kind of pulse of the music. And now I kind of approach it as like, you know, I've been in like punk bands my whole life kind of, and especially like I said, like in my early 20s, you're like angry and angsty and mad at shit, and I'm just a lot less angry these days. And I find it much more of a challenge to write ballads and more kind of sentimental songs, and so it's sort of like an interesting challenge for me to do that. And yeah, and I enjoy that a lot. So
how old are you now?
I'm 31.
So I mean, when you look back at these songs when you wrote it, like that you were when you're 23 to 26 or 27, how does it make you feel looking back on it at this age?
It's interesting. Some of them I like more than others, and I feel like sort of are a bit more you know, have a bit more longevity in terms of like my opinion about them. There are ones that are sort of like the punk songs that I still like a lot, and I think are like still like strong and fun to play. I mean, it's always really fun to play like fast, heavy stuff. It's, you know, it's like real cathartic and good. And then there are a few like of the sentimental ones that I feel like capture a really particular moment in my life that was like important to me, and so I really enjoy playing those. Or ones where I feel like I stepped out of my comfort zone a bit and took a risk, and sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. And so some of those I like and some I don't, you know.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag of emotions.
Exactly, a mixed bag of emotions.
So when you're songwriting, even then or now, is it a collaborative effort with other people, or is it solely on you?
Yeah, not usually. Usually it's something that I do on my own. I'm unfortunately not that great of a team player when it comes to doing like the creative stuff. Um, in the early days, most of the song, like the first batch of songs, I kind of would bring to the table more or less fully formed, and then there was like kind of a window of a period where I was making a big effort to kind of collaborate a bit more on the tracks, and so some of them have a little bit more contribution from the band members at the time. And then kind of what would happen really is like, you know, we'd have rehearsals and stuff, or we'd tour, we'd record, and the writing would really take place when I stepped away from the band and when I was on my own. So that's typically how it goes down.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting aspect. I mean, like, it's different for everybody, and it is really interesting
Yeah.
to get the insight of, I mean, someone's really where they're coming from writing songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. When do you feel the most creative?
Oh God, that's a hard question. I feel like it's ever fleeting, you know, like feeling creative is like capturing lightning in a bottle kind of.
Sure, sure. And you know
So
the questions only get harder, man. I mean, I asked with how you're interested in music. I mean,
yeah, you start with the broad one.
yeah, start with the broad one and it just gets harder. It's
When
levels
am
to
I
it.
when am I feeling most creative? You know, I think after spending a good chunk of time on my own and after experimenting, and kind of getting, you know, I get like antsy if I'm not doing too much, you know, if I'm not constantly doing stuff. And I'm always doing creative projects, whether it's music or art or design or music video production or you know, just like journaling or any of these things, but or cooking, like whatever it might be. I love creating things. I really really enjoy it, and I do really really enjoy collaborating with people on stuff. But I think when I feel most creative is when I'm being challenged with something new, and probably when I'm feeling a bit antsy after I've kind of laid low for a little bit, you know, and like recharged, and then I sort of get the itch to be creative. I think I guess that's probably one.
I mean, that's a good answer. You really looked inside yourself for that one, man. We're really getting deep on
Oh
this.
yeah.
What do
Yeah,
you
you gotta
look
dig deep.
towards for inspiration?
I look for a lot of stuff. You know, it's been I mentioned, I think on Dante's podcast, it's been particularly difficult for me in the last year or so,
Yeah,
with
man,
the
I don't know that
pandemic.
podcast. I don't know who that is, but I'll take your word for it.
It's a terrible podcast. No one listens to it. It's not worth it.
No, not on this one. Love you, Ruben.
Yeah, I love you, Ruben. That, you know, Dante's podcast is awesome.
Yeah, Dante Elefante. I'm just gonna plug it for him right now.
Yeah, plug
Check
it. You
out
gotta plug it after dissing. You gotta plug.
check out Dante Elefante's podcast. It's great. Got a lot of good people on there. Misha's on there. So if you didn't like this one, please go and check out Dante's. Yes.
There you
It's in
go.
person and it's not over Zoom.
That's right. It was in person.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. Enough about him, man.
Yeah, what was the question again? I forgot what the question was.
Like what do you look towards for inspiration? What do you
Yeah.
what do you
Okay.
find yourself looking towards?
All kinds of shit. You know, I'm an absolute hoarder of trinkets and objects and books and paper things and comic books and movies and records and VHSs and but I think primarily really life experiences is where I get my inspiration from when it comes to songwriting, which is why like I said, it's been particularly difficult for me over the last year, because I feel like not having the opportunity to interact with people or have these life experiences is it's resetting the kind of the, you know, it's having to mine a different well, I guess, if you mine wells, than I'm usually used to. But I usually pull from like all kinds of places. A lot of the time it's just like listening to music that I enjoy. Seeing bands live has always been an incredible source of inspiration and motivation, even if it's a thing where it's like where you see a band and you're kind of like, I could do better than that, or you're kind of like, damn, this band is really sick, you know, like it doesn't really matter. There's like an energy that you get and an inspiration from seeing live music that really kind of, for me in the past, has lit a fire under my ass to like create stuff, because it's like, fuck, I want to be doing that. I want to be making music. I want to be on stage. So yeah, in an isolated environment, it's definitely been particularly hard as of late, but those are some of my usual sources of inspiration, I would say.
Speaking of drawing on personal experiences in life in general, I know that you spent some time in England for art school, man. So
Yes.
how did that kind of play into your life go moving forward from that?
Well, it was an interesting reality check, I think, because I had always wanted to go to school, to this art school in London. I had always kind of envisioned going to this school, and I took a year off after high school. I put a portfolio together of like my visual art stuff, and I managed to get into this art school. And it was kind of a reality check because the school sort of didn't live up to the expectations that I'd anticipated for, and my experience wasn't sort of as fruitful as I'd hoped, in terms of creativity and stuff. So coming back to LA after art school, I think it was sort of like a realization that I needed to just like, kind of just pursue my own thing on my own time and make stuff happen for myself, as opposed to relying on an institution or the reputation of a school to provide an outlet for me. It was sort of more so like just taking the reins for myself and finding the shit that I was interested in specifically, and learning the things that I wanted to learn, and trying to meet the people that I wanted to meet, and work with the people that I wanted to work with, and create with the people I wanted to create with, and things of that nature.
I mean, so how much of a culture shock was it, if any, moving from, Southern California to, you said London, correct?
Yeah. Well, so my mom's English. And I was born in London and raised in LA, and two of my siblings were also born in London. So, and we would spend quite a bit of time there, with like family and things, and both of my parents have like quite a strong connection to London still. So I think that was in part why I wanted to go to London, was because I love the city. The city's amazing, and it's an incredibly inspiring city. If for nothing else, the fact that nearly every single museum is completely free and open to the public all the time. And because it's so dense, you can just spend a day walking around, and aside from being inspired by the city itself and the kind of history and the pulse of it, you can wander into museums just endlessly, which is what I tend to do when I'm there, is just walk a lot. I love walking, and it's such a completely different culture from Los Angeles, especially because Los Angeles is sort of notorious for this historical erasure. It's very difficult to keep up with the history of LA because it's constantly being bulldozed and mini malls are being put up all the time. So, in London, it's kind of the complete opposite vibe, where there are these cobblestone streets where the bricks themselves have arguably been in the ground for longer than anything, kind of, and there's such a rich history there, and so that's a very inspiring environment to be in, and that definitely is what drew me, I think, to London for art school, and the idea of trying to pursue like a creative education in the arts.
Yeah, that seems like it's really, you really thought about this a lot and have reflected on it since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm, as you can tell, I'm totally I'm an extremely introspective person, so I'm constantly.
I could tell, dude. I already told you that I saw it, dude. So I can tell. So were you staying with your relatives over there when you were over there?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
So
tight, man. That's really cool.
I was living in a basement flat of a house of some family friends who are pretty much like, my relatives. My mom has been friends with them since before I was born. They have kids that are kind of the same age as me, who are, they're like my cousins, about as close to family as you can get before being blood related. So I was living in they had a basement apartment that they'd converted, and that's where I was living.
You're the basement guy, dude. You're the basement guy.
I was the guy in the basement. I really was. I was the one that I would kind of like emerge occasionally from the basement, sort of depressed and moody in my art school days. And
absolutely, dude. You're just checking all the boxes off, man. That's awesome, dude. Somebody's got to be that basement guy. Somebody's got to fill that role. And not a lot of people live that role, Some people see it. I feel like I'm somebody who sees it, but I would love to be that guy. Like, it's like, oh, is he still down there? Who knows?
That was me. That was definitely me for a while. Yeah.
You lucky son of a gun, man. When did you know that SadGirl was different than any other music projects that you had been a part of in the past?
Honestly, kind of off the bat, because it felt like it was the first time that I was it felt like all the ducks were in a row, kind of. I'd at this point had like a decent amount of experience in kind of graphic design and with the screen printing stuff. And Paul, who I started the band with, our original drummer, and I really vibed musically together, and had a kind of, I think he sort of understood my vision for it musically, and also really trusted my vision creatively in terms of like the visuals and the sort of the kind of promotional aspects of it. And we were on the same page about being, you know, big fans of vinyl records and being into cassettes and into the idea of pressing our own music and kind of doing self releases and stuff. And so from the get-go, it was something I was really excited about and felt like it had a different energy than any other project I had kind of been involved in. It felt like for the first time I had a pretty concise vision for what I wanted to happen, and I had some I had a you know, a teammate who trusted the vision for it and helped kind of move that forward with me.
So there's new air being breathed into a sense of a new chapter in music per se.
Yeah, big time. I mean, when I came back from art school, I had kind of relinquished to the idea that I probably wasn't going to be playing music seriously to any capacity, and had kind of committed to doing primarily more visual arts and graphic design stuff, which is, you know, equally a passion of mine. But I was getting pretty depressed not playing music, so it came right at the right time. To kind of like get that outlet going again, the musical stuff.
Who are you playing alongside when you guys started playing together? Like as
Like which band?
SadGirl, at SadGirl. Like when
So
you first started to go out and like, okay, like we got the songs, we got everything. Let's start playing some shows.
our first show was with some friends of ours who were good friends of Paul, and they're a band called Devola, who unfortunately they're not a band anymore, but they were awesome. They were a really sick band. They were also from the West Side, and they're a three-piece, and it was drums, synth, and bass, and that's it. And the singer Justin was the drummer as well, and he would wear a ski mask while he played, and they were kind of like a little Death Gripsy, like kind of metal. And the bass player would use like all these crazy effects pedals to get these like really awesome, like deep kind of oscillating fucking sounds. And I mean, sonically, like we didn't really pair that well, but because they were like really close buddies with Paul, and they knew Paul had a group going. They had a show set up at this spot called the Scarlet Lady here in Culver City. It was a total dive bar. And so our first show was with Devola at the spot called the Scarlet Lady, the Scarlet Lady Saloon. And then from there, it was kind of, I think our second show was at a spot called the Down and Out, which was a show I got. And I don't remember who else played that night. But early on, it was kind of just anybody who was around. We played Pair Space a lot. We played Time Warp Records a lot, but it was a lot of curating our own lineups. It was setting up the shows for ourselves. You know, there weren't people reaching out to have us jump on bills for a while. It was mostly like we had to set the shows up. And then once we kind of tapped into the community from playing shows, there were a couple bands that we played with a lot. I played with Isaac Rother and the Phantoms, No Parents, Wild Wing. I'm trying to think, who else were some of the early bands? Walter, which was another band that I played in. And before I joined the band, SadGirl would play with them quite a bit. Who else, man? Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good spread. Vegas.
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good, you know, bunch of people that are constantly in the rotation of things.
Yes, yeah, and honestly, it was sort of the rejects of the lollipop record scene, which was like really prevalent at the time in LA and in Echo Park. So it was kind of
in your
cool. It felt
area. Yeah.
in our area,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
When did you start to see some traction behind Sad Girl?
I think it was after we did our first 7-inch record release show, which was at Time Warp Records in Mar Vista. Or no, it was at Time Warp Music. It was before they were a music store and then they opened a record store across the street. But they used to do shows at the music store. They had a stage in the back, and I knew Shane because it was my local music store. He's like the owner of the joint, and also because I grew up with this dude Josh Landau, who had a band called The Shrine, and they were a West Side band, and they would throw really awesome shows at Time Warp. And I think I stole a lot of things from Josh's playbook in terms of like the promotion, like the self promotion, booking the shows on your own, and you know, screen printing all the merch and stuff. And I had actually been screen printing merch for Josh's band, The Shrine, for a number of years before that. And so I realized once I started my band, I could kind of do what I'd been doing for Josh's band on my own. And so what we did is we played a bunch of really shitty shows for a while, didn't make any money, made a bunch of t-shirts, sold them online and at shows, saved up the money, and we finally pressed a 7-inch, and we did a release show at Time Warp Records, and it was like a sellout night. We sold out of the records. It was just like a really killer, like the energy that night was sort of like, oh, okay, this is like, there's some shit cooking right now, you
How
know?
did you go about, publicizing your band?
It was all just like Instagram and Facebook. Everything was just through Instagram and Facebook, and through, you know, we had like a Tumblr set up as the platform for our website, and just like you know, just like social media, dude. That's like how we did everything, was through promoting on social media.
Yeah. Do you feel like if a band is trying to get started now that they could gain notoriety without the use of social media at all?
Yeah, honestly, I think it would be really sick. It'd be really cool for a band to do that. I'm kind of like, that's like where I'm trying to be at, honestly, is I'm trying to like move away from the shit. It's tough because so much relies, you know, your social numbers are very much like a metric of like where you're at in life, and if you're a creative person, like the number of followers you have and the amount of engagement and the analytics, like all that stuff really plays in now as like a social currency in a way that it didn't when we first started the band. It was sort of more just like, whoa, this is sick that people are interested and commenting on the shit and coming to the shows. I think it's possible. I think you'd have to like, I think you'd have to be kind of strategic about it, and would have to be very intentional that that was your goal, was to avoid using social media as a platform.
So you got to publicize, hey, we're anti social media. By use of
You're kind
social
of,
media, I think that would be the best way to do it.
that's the best way to do it. Yeah, what you do is you create a sleeper cell social media account, and you talk about how anti-social media this band is.
Man, this band is so anti-social media, but they're playing a show and you should come see it.
And you should come, yeah, and make sure to take videos and
Use a hashtag.
use a
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, use a hashtag.
How did you get Danny Trejo to be a part of the Norma and Jessica video?
So one of the dudes I grew up with on the West Side, in Venice, is Gilbert Trejo, who's Danny's son, and Gilbert and I are close friends to this day. We're very close, and we grew up together. So we probably became friends when I was like maybe 15 or 16, but we knew of each other. We went to the same middle school, and I had a lot of my friends who were very close friends of mine knew Gilbert, and then we became friends, kind of as teenagers, and and we just stayed friends. And so when we were working on that video was the first sort of venture into doing like a large scale music video for the project, and it was a big deal. We did like a crowdsourced, I think we did a Kickstarter campaign for it or something like that. And when we were kicking around ideas with our director friends, David Gantz and Theo Cohen, who were kind of pitching the premise for the video, I immediately thought we should get Danny in the video. And so I hit up Gilbert and was like, yo, we're working on this video. You think your dad would be down to do it? And Danny is such a kind of gung-ho sweetheart about all that kind of stuff. And he was super down. And so he just rolled up on one of the days of shooting, shot his part, and that was that.
That's rad, man. That's really cool. Yeah, that worked out too, dude. Usually those things kind of fall through. There's something like so perfect that would happen, you know?
Yeah, you never know. I kind of remember the day of the shoot that Danny was meant to be on set. And for me, I wasn't really concerned. I mean, I knew Gilbert and I knew Danny. And so I knew that he was going to turn up. But I know for David and Theo, who were directing, there was this sense of like, is this guy actually going to turn up? Or like, what's the deal? But yeah, sure enough.
That's awesome, man. Only because it was SadGirl, though. That's the only reason why. Not that he knew you, but he was a fan. He was a huge fan.
Exactly. That's why. Yeah, huge fan of the band.
Came to the record release show, right?
I wish. That would have been awesome. Yeah, unfortunately wasn't there. But yeah.
What was the best concert you went to? You attended?
What is the best concert that I've attended?
Yeah.
There are a couple good ones, but there's one that I feel like is a little bit of a left field one. Is I went to a show one time in the parking lot behind Studio Number 1, which is on Sunset and Echo Park. It's like on Sunset and Vin Scully, and it's like Shepard Fairey's design studio or something like that. It was like a weird art event or something. I can't remember how or why I wound up there, but in the parking lot, LL Cool J played like on this tiny stage, and dude, LL Cool J fucking ripped. Like he came out with like the craziest energy, like, and obviously like LL Cool J, like he's had a long history, he's like a household name, he's played massive shows, and again, this was just like a parking lot full of people, but the energy that he brought, I was like, holy fuck, like how do you bring that every time, like how can you bring that to like a rock and roll show?
But he did it because he's LL Cool J.
He did it because he's LL Cool J. Yeah. So that was like a pretty sick one, man.
That's wild, man. That's cool though. So how long after you started the band did you go on your first tour?
Maybe a year or two after we set up like a real DIY ramshackle tour. Me and a friend, my buddy Spencer, and I kind of booked this tour out to South by Southwest and back. Spencer had a band at the time called No-Fi. And so we set up a run out there with like a few like house shows kind of along the way and like weird gig venues, and then a couple really shitty shows actually in Austin. And that was my first taste, I think, of the road. And then shortly after that one, I did like a proper tour with my other band, Walter, and we were opening for Fuzz, which is like Ty Segall's project. And that was kind of the first tour that I did in a van, like getting an idea of what it's like to play venues every night with like a proper routing, like around the whole US, And I think that was maybe 2015.
It's pretty good to be supporting, Fuzz on the with Walter, dude. But that's really interesting. That's a good amount of people watching your shit.
Yeah, it was oh man, that tour was such a blast. And like I said, that felt like the first real one. And so I kind of remember, I feel like if I really tried, I could probably tell you every single show in order and what we did that day and like 8, because I just feel like it was kind of like that sort of memorable experience. And I mean, after that, it's like a little bit hard a lot of the shows sort of start to blur together once you've been on the road for a while. But that first one, I definitely remember very, very vividly.
What was the camaraderie like on that tour?
It was pretty funny. Patrick, whose group Walter was primarily, he's like primary songwriter and the front person for the group. He was also in the Meat Bodies with Chad, who plays in Fuzz. And I think Patrick was like pretty fucking nervous the whole time. So he was a little bit of a sourpuss on the road, as far as I remember. But it was a blast, and it was an interesting thing. Our friend Ross had just started playing in a band called DuckTales, who were touring in Europe at some point halfway through the tour that we were playing. So what we did is we brought our friend Nick to play drums, and Nick rode with us for the first half. We dropped Ross off at the airport in Atlanta, I think, and then Nick took over. Yeah, it was Atlanta, and Nick took over from Atlanta forward for the rest of the tour. So we had 2 different drummers on that run, but it was 4 of us for the first half, and then just the 3 of us in the van for the second leg. And yeah, it was a blast. I mean,
you gotta switch them out, man. You gotta have some fresh blood be brought in.
That's right. Sometimes like halfway through the tour, you just gotta switch out the members, man.
Yeah. I like the idea. It's like, no, I'm done. I'm gonna bring in somebody else. I'm gonna sub in. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you've got guys on the bench waiting to kind of sub in when someone's getting tired on the court.
They're waiting and they're hungry.
Yeah, exactly. You need someone who's hungry.
Are there any specific moments that stand out from touring to you that maybe wasn't even on that tour or was a subsequent tour?
Oh man, honestly there are too many. Gosh, there's so many. Tour is such a crazy experience. It's so interesting. You encounter so many interesting people and have so many bizarre memories. But yeah, I mean, there are a few, like there's some, really important things that stand out, like getting to play the Fillmore in San Francisco the first time, which was opening for Chicano Batman. That was like a really big deal. Obviously,
Chicano Batman's rad, by the way. I gotta shut them out. Carlos, too, great guy. He's come on here, and I really like him. Nice dude. But anyways,
yeah, love Carlos, man. He's a great guy, great guitar player, great musician.
All the dudes. I mean, come on, man. Chicano Batman, you gotta be backing him, or else what are you doing?
100%.
That's what I say.
Definitely. Yeah, there's that. Like I always mention this. There's this dude that we stay with in Philly every time we're in Philly. This guy called Joe. Joe the dentist, and he's this he's got a dentist's office and his house like above the dentist's office, and it's just the craziest house. And I feel like no matter how I explain this, it's never really going to explain like what the vibe is like, but he's a super sweet guy, and he just like supports music. And we stayed there on that Walter tour with the Fuzz dudes, and this guy Joe is just so hospitable, and his house is like so nice, and there's like a balcony off of his second story like living room, which has a pool table in it and like a little bar, and it's it's just like a spot where you can like hang. And there are actual like nice beds and bedrooms where he would let us stay, which is often like a big change when you're kind of sleeping on the floor in shitty motels and stuff. So after we did that tour, word spread about Joe and his hospitality, and a load of bands have stayed there since. I know the Paranoids, my sister's band, they've stayed with Joe, and I know Ross, who's played in Girlpool, like Girlpool has stayed with them now, and my friend Sarah, who plays in a band called Jim Short, she stayed with Joe, and so like shit like that is always cool when you encounter some extremely hospitable people who are willing to put up a group of stinky people in their house.
That's rad. Was he an orthodontist, or what was his occupation?
No, he's a dentist. He's a dentist. Yeah.
Joe the dentist, dude. Philly. Got it.
Yeah, Joe the dentist from Philly. Exactly.
Joe the dentist from Philly. Nice balcony.
Yeah. Great balcony.
Sorry, great balcony. My apologies, Joe. If you're listening, man, I'm coming for you, dude. I'm gonna come stay at your house. Come lay on that pool table.
There you go.
Are you decent at pool?
No, I'm trash. I'm terrible at it.
I am as well. Yeah. I rewatched The Hustler. You ever seen that Paul Newman movie?
Love The Hustler. Big Paul Newman guy.
Fantastic movie. Can never get into it. But recently, I tried that shuffleboard game. You see at bars with the sand.
Yeah.
Fun game. Not a lot of skill required. So that's what I was into. I was playing it with my buddy recently.
How'd you do? Did you win?
We actually figured out how to do it. Like he actually looked at the rules, and you're supposed to start on the same side, and it's supposed to go like 15 or something like that. I was getting pretty good, dude. I was getting pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I took one of them, and then he took one of them, and then our other buddy played him. So, but yeah, that's kind of my game. If they got it there, if Joe has it there, man, I'm playing it. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's one
Respect.
song you wish you would have written?
One song that I wish I would have written.
Yeah, that you wrote. You wish you wrote.
Wichita Lineman,
By
as made famous by Glenn Campbell.
okay.
But yeah, it's performed by a lot of people. That's that's probably
really
one of my
appreciate
all-time favorites.
that was in the back pocket right there, man.
Yeah.
I was quick.
Yeah,
I was quick with it.
I love that song. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's a good one. It's a good one.
What's the last thing you think about before you go on stage?
Man, I don't know if my brain's cooking anything when I'm about to go on stage. You know, for a long time, I mean, it's been a while now since we've been on stage, but in the early days, I used to puke before every show. I would get so nervous. And I still get incredibly nervous, but I think honestly, I think I'm just thinking like, man, I hope I don't break a string or trip or something, you know?
When did the puking stop? When did you stop getting that nervous?
I don't know. That's a good question. Probably a couple of years in.
I tried to get one in, Misha. I appreciate you saying it was a good question. It finally got into it roughly after 40 minutes doing it. Got one question in.
You got one good one. Yeah, we can wrap it up from here.
Yeah, this is it, dude. This is it, man. Just a few more, man. Actually, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a couple more. It's a little bit more than a few. What could you? I mean, if you think about this, after you get off the stage, what is the feeling that you're feeling? If you can remember that.
Oh man, yeah, it's like the best. You know, being on stage and being able to share your music with other people, and especially, you know, it was a really big deal when we started playing shows when it wasn't just friends in the audience, and when people started singing along to the lyrics, and you know, there really is nothing quite like it. There's a lot of adrenaline, there's a lot of anxiety, but you're not only kind of sharing your creative stuff, but you're presenting your skills and everything that's built up. You know, playing live shows is sort of the culmination of what you work on as a musician. It's a demonstration of everything that you've been working on, kind of. And when you get positive feedback from that, if there's like a great crowd and a really strong energy, there really is nothing like it, and it's super addictive. It's, you know, it's a bit like experiencing like a runner's high or something like that. I don't run. I want to clarify that. I have never experienced a runner's high, but I would assume that it is kind of, you know, a musician playing a sold out show at the Terragram Ballroom with a bunch of kids singing along and crowd surfing is probably, you know, when you get off stage, you're kind of, you know, you're tingling a little bit, and you feel that energy, and that kind of carries over for the next few days, and you're kind of just waiting for the next one, really.
It's interesting. I like how you backtracked on that statement of the runner's high. Like, I'm not affiliated with them. I don't do that kind of stuff. That's not
exactly
me. But I've heard.
Yeah, I don't want any of your listeners to get the wrong idea here about me.
No, all 13 of them, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is this guy up to?
Yeah, it could be bad news if 13 people are thinking I'm a runner out here. It could be bad. Even
14. And I had to edit this, man. So we'll just see what comes out.
Yeah, you're gonna re-edit it, and it's gonna say, "I love running."
Yeah, there it is. I mean, I don't even have to do. You cut out so much work for me. That's gonna be at the top of this.
There you go. There's your soundbite. I'm making it easy.
Yeah.
You guys can ignore the rest of this podcast. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, and if I want you guys to know something very personal about me, I love to run. That's my thing.
There it is. And that's not me editing it at all. You heard it here. I'm gonna mark the timestamp on that. Okay. All right. Good. Okay.
Yeah, mark that. We can move and loop. You could just loop it.
We're clipping it. Yeah. What's the most difficult show you've played? Or one that's really difficult? Maybe not the most, but that stands out to you.
Difficult, like in terms of like technical issues and things of that nature?
Yes. But all encompassing everything.
Oh man, I don't remember. There you get a lot of bad shows. We played a show in Omaha, Nebraska one time. It was like an early show. There's hardly anybody there to see the headliner who we were opening for, and even less people there to see us when we performed. And you know, it was midway through a tour. You get pretty beat on tour. You know, it's pretty draining. And when you roll up to a show and there's like no one there, and you got to do the set because that's what you're there for. Yeah, it's a real test of might, test of endurance and tenacity, because you still try to give it your all, you know. And that can kind of be harder than experiencing any kind of technical difficulties. I can't really think of any extremely gnarly technical difficulties where, like, you know, I was on the verge of a meltdown or anything like that. I remember early on, like maybe second show or something like that, we played. And I originally liked to sing for a while. I tried singing with like I would bring a harmonica microphone and I would sing with that. And those are pretty notorious for getting a lot of feedback. And I remember just getting like an insane amount of feedback while we were playing and getting pretty pissed at the sound guy. But it's probably my fault. So I don't know.
He's sitting back there like, you brought the mic, dude. That's your mic.
Exactly. Like,
But you're mixing it, bud. So
mic.
you know, whose fault is it really?
Yeah.
Both. It's both.
Exactly. You get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah. Because I was that sound guy. So kind of fuck you, dude. I was there, dude. I told you don't bring the mic. I said we have mics here. You said, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna use this harmonica mic. And here we are, man. Here we are. Finally got to you, dude.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a long time going, man. You stored that shit up.
I hold grudges. Yeah. Coming after everybody.
Good for you. Vindictive.
if not anything, I follow through with these ill-mannered situations.
Yeah.
To get my spite.
Well, I respect that. I'm proud of you, and I'm happy that we finally met face to face after all these years.
Well, we were face to face that night too, but it's fine.
We were, yeah.
Back at it. If you didn't have the exposure to music through your family, do you feel like you'd have a different relationship with music right now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think I was lucky enough to, again, grow up in a really music-rich environment, and get exposed to a lot of different kinds of music. My mom was an avid music listener and consumer of music, and you know, again, my father was like constantly experimenting with different instruments and things, and you know, my dad. That's kind of a big thing that my dad and I share is our love of music, and same with me and my mom. You know, a lot of families, you know, like the kids, you know, connect with sports with their dad or something like that, and they're big fans of like a particular team or something like that, or might be, you know, into Matt Damon movies or something like that, you know. But for my family, it was always music. That was like the connecting factor, and that's still, you know, I can hop on the phone with my dad and talk to him about gear, or you know, talk to him about music or production stuff or music biz things. And so that's been like a really important, you know, it's definitely been a particularly fostering environment. I don't know if I would have continued to pursue music the way that I have if it wasn't sort of part of my family lineage the way it has been.
How important is the visual aspect to music for you?
For me, it's huge. I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, I was so enthralled, you know, when you're young, you love the band logos, you love band tees, you love the visuals that you see during live performances. And I was always really inspired by a few people, especially from a young age. I really appreciated the stuff that like Jimmy Page did with Led Zeppelin, with like the branding and kind of giving each band members these weird esoteric symbols and kind of all this weird mythology kind of behind it. And you know, George Martin with the Beatles, and you know, that kind of stuff. And also I really, you know, when I was in my kind of like early teen years and later teen years, a big fan of like Jack White and the White Stripes. And he was always very, very specific about kind of like the color of a group, or like the band colors and like the logos and the aesthetics of the group. You know, the White Stripes were white, black, and red, and I love that. I just loved it. I loved that every album cover had white, black, and red. And I love this, you know, I love the design and the packaging design of vinyl records and cassettes and stuff. I mean, it's kind of what you do. When I was a kid, you know, cassettes were still a thing, and you'd sit in the car just like staring at the cassettes and like reading all the liner notes and the packaging and stuff. And yeah, I love it. I mean, I think it's awesome. For me, the visual identity for a group is huge. I think it's a really fun, creative, and you know, it just adds a lot of dimension to a band. You can create a really interesting world that is unique to the music that you're making.
Yeah. What was the idea behind using the rose as your logo for SadGirl?
Again, I think I think the idea was that it was somehow both romantic and tough, you know. A rose is, you know, it's a pretty typical symbol of romance, but also is something that people get tattooed, you know. So it's like romantic and tough, and just like
playing
a classic,
both parts.
yeah, exactly. And I always felt that was the vibe, you know. The group was, you know, romantic and tough. We were doing punk songs, but we were doing love songs as well, you know.
Where did the song rather Feel Like Shit, how did that come about?
I was driving in my car, and a lot of the songs I write or will come up with parts of them, if not all of them, while I'm driving. I love driving, and I feel like when I'm driving, just enough of my brain is engaged driving while the other part is shut off just enough to do some really good thinking, kind of. You're not too in your head. Oh, look, we got a cameo.
Boom.
All right, this is an important cameo. This is Marmite the cat.
Marmite? Did you say Marmite?
Marmite, that's right.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. I just want to make sure I was listening. I would try to be an active listener, Misha. I'm trying to get the names right, everything correct.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you, sir.
But
anyways, you're driving.
And it was just the idea. I thought it would be funny and cool to make a classic love song in the style of kind of like oldies and doo-wop, and you know, instead of it being like you broke my heart and now I'm crying, to just be like, I feel like shit. You know, it was just like a tongue-in-cheek way of doing, you know, carrying on the tradition of the kind of like oldies and love songs that I was a fan of and have always been a fan of.
Yeah. I mean, it's tongue in cheek in a blatant way. And if I could say that correctly, it would have been a lot better. But I didn't. But I'm leaving it in, dude.
It sounded good. I thought it sounded good.
Thank you.
You sounded good. Yeah.
Thank you. I practiced that in the mirror.
You know, you should. Maybe a little more practice.
maybe a little more, dude. Yeah. Get you throwing the jabs when we're wrapping it up, dude.
Yeah, we're bobbing and weaving here.
What do you want people to take away from the music that you make?
I like that one. That's a good one.
That's two. That's two good ones.
That's all two. Right. That's it. Yeah, that's two good ones. That's
and a stumble too.
Two good ones and a stumble. What do I want people to take away from my music? I love that my music connects with people, if at all. It means the world to me when it does. And for some people who have mentioned to me that my music has connected to them or played an important part in certain times of their life, it means a lot to me. I hope that there are some people out there, and I'm sure that there are, that kind of just get it. You know, they get where I'm coming from, and that sort of understand the sort of creative aspect of it and my motivations behind it, and sort of the overall vibe that I'm trying to portray. And again, kind of living in this world somewhere between romantic ballads and you know, oldies and soul music and punk music and surf music and a little bit of kind of like early American country music. And I love the idea of like these kind of gut-wrenching songs that are sort of like you know, they're genuine and they're meaningful, but they're also not without a certain sense of self-awareness and a sense of humor, you know. So
very nice. What do you see for the future of SadGirl?
Oh man, I don't have an answer for you for that question. We will see what the future holds.
To be determined.
To be determined. Yeah, everything is in such a state of disarray at the moment. I'm kind of slowly trying to get my feet back on the ground. You know, we're slowly starting to do stuff again and making moves. Had like a couple, you know, lineup changes or additions and scheduling conflicts with band members and things of that nature, and various cancellations and rebookings and plannings and reschedulings and stuff. And it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the kind of daunting nature of all these things. So what I'm trying to do is just take everything as it comes and continue to kind of just move forward and just create as it comes and do projects as they see fit, as the world kind of continually deteriorates around us. Yeah, I have no answer.
Very bleak, but okay. That's fine. That's fine. Anyways, all right, man. No, it is what it is. Speak your truth, man. I'm not gonna censor you, dude.
I call it like I see it.
Say whatever the heck you want, man. Okay, listen, man. I wrapped this up with some promo. So the people can find SadGirl's music on all streaming platforms. It's everywhere. Wherever you like to get your music, that's where you can find it.
That's right.
You can find SadGirl, because I know you guys have a little bit of tour dates coming up. Kinda, we'll see. It's kind of rocky right now, and you can find the tour dates and merch at wearesadgirl.com, correct?
That's correct.
As well through Suicide Squeeze. That's also where you can find it. And be sure to stream the Goodbye Queenie music video on YouTube, correct? That's the best place that people can find it.
Out next week, but it'll be out streaming by the time this airs. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. Or
you blew it. Sorry, you blew up the spot.
That blew up.
Man. Okay, are you ready to redo this then? You ready to take it from that? Okay, cool. Hey man, so what got you interested in music? I'm kidding, buddy. Thank you so much, dude. Is there anything else we need to promote before?
No, I think that's it.
It's like, thank you, dude. I'll talk to you in a minute. All right. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll talk to you.